Yeah, how's it going, guys? Jackson here with Toasty DIY, and today we're going to be putting together this 8 by 10 foot Aero galvanized steel shed. As you can see, this one has gotten pretty wet, so we're getting its first weather test, but we had some pretty bad weather here for a couple days in a row, so I wasn't able to continue what I was doing. But yeah, we ordered it from Home Depot. Got this 8 by 10 foot concrete square poured. It's definitely not a great finish, but it'll do the job. So here's what the completed kit should look like when you get it open. Whenever I do kits like these, I always like to just completely take off the top rather than open one end, because it's just way too difficult trying to pull everything out one at a time. My paper's already flying away here, but yeah, off the bat, I'm not seeing any dents or major flaws. It's one thing you want to watch out for, especially with garage doors, anything that's like aluminum or galvanized steel. It's a really thin gauge. It's very common that it's very easy to dent. I mean, you can already see some slight scratching. Do not expect to get this $320 shed and have perfect paint. The next thing I'm going to do is, as you can see, the very first note that I found that was in one of the roof gables was our gables are packed as right and left gables must be separated prior to assembly, which I figure is pretty straightforward. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to lay out every single part, anything that matches, I'm going to put together. Like, as you can see, there's two pieces of gable right here, so I'm basically just going to lay everything out. Hopefully it doesn't take up all my space here, but we'll get right back once we lay it out. Alright, we got basically everything out and relatively sorted. Alright guys, so as you can see, this is a separate instruction sheet for installing the floor frame kit, which actually comes with this one. Normally they don't, but apparently they have started including it with this one. We're actually not going to be using that because, as we said, we have a concrete platform, so we're not going to be needing a floor frame for plywood. So we're just put all that stuff off to the side. There's the part numbers for each thing, which are all labeled. Yeah, sharp edges. We already have one casualty, so make sure you wear gloves. So step one, we're going to take two 8-9-3-7s, which we have here, and we're going to bolt them together. So just using the little 9mm hex nuts and bolts, you can see that the ones going against the floor, you're going to use the flat end, and then obviously the one that's recessed like this, you're going to do the opposite way. So you should end up with a piece that looks like that, just two pieces. Alright, so step one continued is now completed. That is two of the 8-9-3-6s, which is basically the same thing as those. They're just a little bit longer. You're going to be using 5 screws this time, / bolts. So you can see finished assembly there, and that one's going to be, like I said, a little bit longer overall. Okay guys, so as you can see, step one continued once again. This is using parts 8-3-6-7 and 8-9-3-4, which 8-9-3-4 is this ramp right here, and then the 8-3-6-7 are these two little outer pieces. You want to make sure that these two drain holes, or 3 drain holes that are on the ramp, face the outside, and how you'll know is that little overlap is the front. So this is all facing towards the front, which is correct right now, and it's held on with a total of 8 of these self-tapping screws, and you should end up with something like this. Alright, step 2 is completed. We're supposed to use 2 9-9-1-7s, which is a full channel, and then 2 5-9-8-6s. One problem we did run into is that the 5-9-8-6s, at least in our kit, were not labeled. So that's going to be these 2 angled ones that have 5 screw holes, and the middle one is offset. But there's 2 other ones right over there where the holes are all aligned, and that's not the case here. We wanted the middle one to be offset. That's just one screw in the middle. Didn't say which way to put it in. I guess it technically doesn't matter since they're mirrored of each other. And then the channel should look like this. So you're going to overlap the first big hole over that, and then this hole right here will go over that, and then just put your bolt with a nut on the other side through. You should end up with 2 pieces that are about the exact same length. So step 2 continued for the wall frames. We needed 4 9-9-2s and, 9-9-2-2 and 4 8-8-3-9s, and then we only need 4 bolts because it's kind of like the step we did before. So just one bolt and screw goes in the middle. So you should end up with 4 pretty much identical pieces, except these are channels, these 2, and then these 2 are angled for the walls. So step 3, the start of it for roof beams, you need 4 10-4-70s, which are these channels right here. a total of 16 of the bolts and nuts. So you got 2 on the sides and then 6 on the bottom. You should end up with 2 identical, pretty long pieces put together. Alright, step 3 continued. It's now completed. So you're going to need a total of 14 bolts and then 4 more of the 10-4-70s like we did over here. We already used 4 over there. These ones actually go back to back. So basically, you're just going to do the exact same thing with the exact same pieces, except you're not going to bolt them together. You just put them together to where the 6 holes line up, and then you're going to put them back to back, and then you're going to screw the 6 here. You're going to have 2 on both opposing ends there, and then there's going to be another 4 on the outside here, and then that's the, I believe, sidewall channel assembly there. And then that's the double roof beam assembly put together. Step 4 is now completed. That's assembling the door track for the sliding doors. So you need a total of 4 of the self-tapping screws, 1 of the 6403, which is this piece here. It's the painted channel that has like a little lip on it, just painted brown. And then the other 2 pieces are non-painted. That's going to be 2 of the 9366s, which is channels that have 2 different lengths on both sides. And then you're going to need 4 of these sliders, which once you got the door together, you're just going to basically be able to slide the door back and forth. And then with the 4 screws, it's basically, sorry, I don't know what's going on back there. With the 4 screws, you're basically going to meet in the middle of that brown channeled piece. So you got 2 here and then 2 on the outer side. And now we're going to go on to frame assembly. So then we're going to be doing 2 of these self-tappers. This is the back of the shed or garage. So 2 in each one. Make sure you have a drill or something like that that's clutched out so you don't strip these. They are kind of delicate. 2 over here. And then the only difference with the front, it's the exact same. You still do 1 here, 1 here, and then you have a nut that you got to put in prior into the bottom, or you can do it after technically. And that's going to be also on this side as well. You're still going to do 2 here, the self-tappers, and then 1 bolt and nut there. So you should need a total of 8 self-tappers and 2 of the bolts. And then your frame, once together, should look relatively square. And you should also confirm that by measuring from corner to corner on both sides. And then you can also, if you really want to, take an angle finder, make sure you have 90s on both corners, just to make sure that once you're going to go put your walls on your roof and everything, your whole shed's not crooked. Okay guys, so we're now doing step 6, the start of it. That's putting on the corners. So you need 2 of the 6627 wall panels and 2 of the 9374s. They look pretty similar. And you're going to need 4 of the corner panels, which are these right here. And then you're going to start using nylon washers on every single one of these, because they're all going on the outside and you're going to get rust if you screw directly against it, and also they help weather seal. But basically each panel, you're going to do it just like this, a corner piece in each one. The panels are the same all the way up and down, so it shouldn't matter which side you do it on. So we're going to do that 4 times now. Alright, so now we got the 2 back sides up, so we're kind of skipping between these 2 pages here. But basically, 2 back sides are going to look like that. Obviously the back side is the 6627s, the corners are all the same. And you're going to just use 1 self-tapping with a nylon washer, and then 4 in the back. So you're going to have a total of 5 on each back corner. They are going to lean a lot because this is just really thin sheet metal, so make sure it's not super windy when you're doing this. We got a little bit of wind, but it's not too bad. And then when we go to the front corners, they actually do have a certain side, so they only have the spot for the self-tappers on one side, not on the other, so you really can't mess that up. And as you can see, that's going to be the 9374s in the front here, and you're only going to be using 4 of the self-tapping screws for that. Okay, so we actually had to do steps 6 and 7 together essentially. So I showed you guys us putting the corners on each one. That's really self-explanatory, pretty easy. Step 6 is where you definitely need 2 people, and as you see by this thing up here, beware of wind. So when you put these corner pieces on, they want to fall over. You can actually see over here, this piece got pretty bent up from it falling forwards, and it's really not even really that windy, so this is definitely like a two-person job. We went ahead and kind of skipped ahead and started putting the frame pieces on, so that's all the rear wall channel, side wall channel, and the front door track that we built towards the beginning of this. So it's good to go ahead and put those on. You're just going to use, on the back, it's going to be a total of 4 of the self-tapping nylon washers, and then 1 on each side for the side channels, and it's going to be the same for the other side. And then for the front door track assembly, you want to make sure that the bottom is facing down, or the shorter lips facing down, and then that the brown piece is facing out. And then once again, you're just going to line up the screws out here, and you're just going to put 3 on the inner holes. Alright, so now what we're doing is the back wall. We're actually doing this a little bit out of order. Normally, we are in the step where you're doing all the walls. We're just deciding to do the back first, basically 1 panel at a time. And so you want the panel to go in just like this. So you say we're putting this panel behind here, and you're basically just overlapping each panel, and then you're going to screw them in to the tops of the frame rail up top, and then the bottom. And then as you can see, we will have the whole entire backside assembled, and that's just only using the self-tapping screws. Okay, so after 80 of the self-tapping screws and 17 bolts, we got all the walls up besides the doors. So as you can see, you're going to do a bolt every time there's an overlap, just right in the middle, and then the rest of it's just all these sheet metal screws along the bottom and top. Still left these ones out right there as it said to do in the instructions, but yeah, all the walls are up, and now I believe the next step is doing the wall channels on the inside. So step 10 is going to be doing the wall channels. We're just using 2 new pieces, 9365. That's going to be these little short wall channel pieces, the thin ones, and then the other ones we're going to be using are the ones that we put together towards the very beginning of the video. And as you can see, the self-tapping screws go on the outside just like everything else with the nylon washers all the way through. And then you're going to, the only difference is you're going to have 1 on the outside of the back, and then 1 on the other side of the outside of the back. But other than that, they all go on just with self-tapping screws, no bolts in this step, and you should end up with something like that. So step 11 is now completed. You're going to be using the 6001 and the 6000, basically all the gables. And they're going to be using these brackets that'll come in this bag here. So that looks like this. The L's are going to the L is going to face inwards towards the smaller end of the gables. And then don't forget to put your plastic weather stripping up top, and then cut the excess when you're done. 2 bolts in each one. And you're just going to repeat that step for all 4 of the gables. Step 11 and step 11 continued are now both complete. So these ones you kind of do together because, so we're at the front of the shed right now. You can see we already did that in step 11 when it first started. So this one's kind of weird. You're going to have these 2 little brackets that are going to come in that plastic bag. We're going to put 2 nuts and bolts through, and then 4 of the self-tapping screws to hold it down, and then you're not going to use any bolts up top because that's where your support beam for the gables goes all the way across. So just 1 bolt's going through that actual bracket to hold it on, and as you can see, just the self-tapping screws all the way across. Same thing for this side, except you don't have those 2 center supports, just the single bolt going through, just the 2 holes facing outwards, and the rest of them are lining up there, and that's where the gable is going to attach to. Same with these, you're just going to go all the way across for the support beams. So we just finished step 12, the roof framing step. You're just going to need 12 of the bolts and nuts, and then you're going to need all 3 of the roof beams that we made towards the very beginning. So as you can see, the double sided one, the slants are going to go up top where it's slanted downwards, and then you're just going to do 2 bolts in each side just like that. And then you're also going to do the 2 smaller roof beams over here, once again just with 2 nuts and bolts on each side, making sure that the slant also faces downwards, and then also making sure that the inside is facing this way, just like that. And then the next step that we're going to do, just because we're going to go and stop for the day, is we're going to go ahead and anchor this to the ground. So you have a lot of anchor points throughout this whole thing, especially if you're not using plywood. That's kind of why we're shifting the building right now. And so basically we're just going to probably find a couple corners for now just to do some concrete anchors and just make sure that this shed doesn't blow away overnight, because there's definitely a lot of horror stories about these. So we're going to go ahead and do that and finish doing the roof tomorrow. Alright guys, so we're working on doing step number 13 now, so that's going to be using the 2 right ends and 2 left ends. That's the roof corners as it shows in the diagram here. You do need to make sure that you kind of follow these steps right here, because there is certain holes that they want you to screw in at one time, probably to make putting the rest of the roof on a little bit easier. And sorry, it's extremely windy right now, probably not the best time to be doing this, but so you're just going to be doing holes 2 through 6, and then 1 screw, or the self-piercing screw, for hole number 7, but the rest of it's bolts in each one. And so I'll show you one kind of finished example. So it's going to go on like that. These screws actually go through up top, and so you're going to do self-piercing in the middle, and then you're not going to do hole number 1, but you're going to do 2 through 6 holes with bolts, and you're going to do that to all 4 sides. So now we're getting ready to move on to step 14, roof assembly, but just showing you guys we finished step 13. We did all 4 roof corners, so you're going to have something just like that when you're done. And looking from the outside, you'll see you'll have the actual bolts or nuts sticking out from this angle, and then make sure you put your nylon washers up top there to keep water from coming inside. But should have that all the way around and have your peak coming up on your gable and everything. And now we're on to the next step. Alright, so just finished the beginning of 14, or at least one of steps 4. So that's going to be 4 self-tapping screws for each of these 7, 4, 8, 3 panel, but you're not going to be doing the bottom ones just yet. So you should end up with 8 screws along these, and now we're going to do this one, and then this one here, and then we're not going to do the front ones just yet. Alright, so we just did step 14. That's basically doing the first 4 panels in the roof. The middle ones are going to be a little bit bigger than the outside ones, but you're going to end up with this. I'll kind of get it back up a little bit. So you make sure that you don't do the screws on the very outside, but you're just going to use the self-piercing screws along the top, just like we showed you. Just do that for 4 panels, and then right after that you're going to actually use some of that tape and actually go along the whole top side before you put the center cap over. And it's 2 pieces. So first you do the tape to here, don't cut it, you stop, put the first center cap on, and then we're going to put the last 2 panels, and then continue the tape, and then put the last center cap on. And that's going to be step 15. Alright, so we just went from step 14 continued to step 14 continued, and basically there's, we're a whole 10 steps in, and so we've now put the second roof cap over. So you're going to make sure you use the same bolts for that center one, and then 2 new ones right on the outside. And obviously don't forget to move the rest of your weather stripping. And then you need a lot more, 24 more sheet metal screws, and then 8 more of the nuts, washers, and bolts for the rest of the ridge cap and then the rest of the panel. But once you're basically almost done with the panels, you should have pretty much a completed roof. Obviously everything's not quite bolted down yet because we still have a few trim pieces left, and we never did bolt the outside ones just yet, so we're getting ready to get to that step now. And also part of step 14 that we're going to go ahead and do now, this is basically the last step, is go ahead and do all of these screws and bolts. Any of the spots that overlap are going to use bolts, and then the rest of the spots are just going to use the little self-tapping screws. So obviously any small ones, self-tappers, and then spots like this where it overlaps, that's where you can actually use bolts. Alright, so we just finished this whole side over here. So that's kind of giving you an overview of what you should be looking at. Those ones that are kind of right there in the center, those are going to be bolts. The rest of everything's all sheet metal screws. And then I believe it's these 2 here are also bolts as well that'll kind of tie the frame together a little bit more. And then obviously the exact same thing on the other side. We just finished up step 15, that's doing the roof trim. So hang in there, you're almost done. There's only basically 2 more steps. Also, just a heads up, using a drill that has a clutch on it really comes in handy. This is just a pretty decent Makita one that has a clutch, and basically what the clutch does is much like a car. It just allows the drill to slip once it reaches a certain foot-pound or point of resistance. It's really good for all these sheet metal screws. Almost every single one is not needed more than maybe a couple to a few foot-pounds to tighten, and you don't want to get these too tight or else they're just going to end up snapping off. But basically with this step, you got to put these little end pieces on each corner with just 1 screw on the top, and then you got to put these on, which basically you just loosen those top screws and then you slide that in on both sides, front and back. And then you're also putting these trim pieces on. You gotta make sure you put the trim pieces on first, and then you put those corner caps I just showed you guys on there. That's gonna be 2 of the long brown angled pieces, and then 2 of the shorter ones, and then just self-tapping screws for each one from there. Alright guys, so I'm kind of showing you 2 combined steps here. This is step basically 15 continued kind of and door install. You're gonna see a separate clip here in just a second on kind of the little bit of a different order I did it in, but basically this is showing you how to put each door together individually. They both go together the exact same, nothing's different on either one. It was a little bit complicated to me at first, but first I'm just going to show you what the door looks like once it's actually up. I just have one up and it's loosely fitted right now. I just have most of the bolts in their rightful place, but basically really the only thing on the outside you should really see as of now is the door handle. These are going to take little self-tapper screws with the nylon washers, but basically what you're going to have on the inside of the door is you're going to have this vertical brace, which is this piece right here with the tab on it. These ones didn't even have numbers on them, so I'm just going to show you what they look like. And then you're going to be using these 2 right here, which have 2 holes on each side, 2 in the middle, just like that. You're going to be using a total of 4 of those. So those guys that I just showed you are going at the very bottom like this, and then you're going to be using these black tabs, and they're going to be oriented like this, basically, and they go in with the same bolt that holds this bottom piece on, and that's what allows this system to slide smoothly without having too much play. So you're going to have one of these guys on each side, and then like I said, you're going to have this really just a single long bar going all the way up the middle. Obviously you're going to be kind of using a lot of overlapping spots, so the single bolt's going to go here. You don't screw anything else on this top panel yet. Just the singular bolt through here with a nylon washer to hold this and this on, but then to actually hold the door on, these sliders, you're basically going to be using these screws into these tabs here. That's why they have 3 different holes, is so that you can basically position the door up or down as you need, especially get the door lined up and everything. But as you can see, like I said, this is all loosely fitted. I don't even have most of the bolts tightened, and the door is already working. There's no spots where it hangs up or anything, so that's definitely a good sign. But yeah, I'll show you, I'm going to go ahead and get the parts on this one. I'm going to show you what it looks like once everything's on there and ready to get put onto the slider. And then obviously we'll go on the last step, just showing you guys how to make sure the doors are lined up, make sure that the handles line up so you're able to actually put a lock through it, a padlock if you want to. And then from there, we'll essentially be done with the whole entire assembly of the shed. You can see I got a ladder and everything in there, but besides that, though, the shed's turned out great. So let's go ahead and get to this last step, and then we'll get a last walk around of it. Alright, so I said I'd show you guys what the other door looks like on the ground, but I'm stupid and I forgot. So this one's up. I did end up losing one of these black screws. I have no clue where it went. Don't know if it came with it or not, but this is just a basic galvanized self-tapping screw, so it'll do the same job. Basically, you're going to use those 4 really coarse thread black screws to hold it up. I used the middle of the 3 holes on each one. Everything lined up really well. I still have not put in, like I said, the center screws. We're just going to wait until we have the door. The door is lined up and fully bolted on before we do that. But other than that, well, one thing I also screwed up that I'm going to go ahead and point out so you guys don't do it. Make sure you put the door onto the sliders when it's past this point right here, because there's a lip to stop you from pulling it all the way out. So basically now I just have to, it's not a big deal, I just gotta take these off and I have to start the door past here to put it on. That's in the instructions, it says do the door about halfway back, which I obviously forgot to do, so we're gonna do that real quick and then come back. So just to show you guys once again exactly what we did here, like I said, I kind of combined, I know I was doing each step one at a time, but step 15 continued, and 16 are all pretty identical in how they go, and I wasn't like a huge fan of exactly the order, I guess you could say, of how the page was laid out. I kind of just made it complicated for me. This is one of those few steps that's easier just to kind of look at the pictures and go, okay, here's where everything needs to go. So I am just going to show you guys that my doors do indeed line up very well, which is nice. It took a little bit of adjusting, but not much. We have the self-tapping screws all along the outside now, so we don't have any blank holes or anything with the nylon washers. And the doors slide open pretty well. They are, of course, this whole shed is galvanized steel, so it's all going to be loud and clanky. You know, that's just what you get for getting a cheaper and easier to put together shed. But you can see we're going to put these 2 screws up top, like I said, and then the only screw you're going to have holding the top one on each side is just this guy in the middle. Keep in mind, these doors are the exact same. There's nothing different as far as like the bolt patterns go, so you can use them interchangeably. The only downside is you have to put them together like flipped upside down, basically. At first I totally screwed up, and I'll just admit it, you know, this was technically the wrong way because I matched what was on that side, and the little sliders were technically on the wrong side. Because as I said, they're basically the same door, as you can see by like the bolt holes and whatnot. So you just have to make sure that you do kind of, I guess you could say, the opposite on each one, since you're not like flipping them or anything. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying there, because I did it backwards the first time, so I had to redo this door after I did the first one. But keep in mind you have multiple bolt holes up here. I think I did have to actually, because it looked like a common problem with these is the bottom you get a gap. So what I basically did to counteract that was put these 2 screws one set of holes down, which, like I said, gave me a really clean close, and it'll stop once it reaches the halfway point too on both doors. Oh, here we go. I don't know why that one just got caught up, but it'll stop at the halfway point. Here's where you can put a padlock or 2 padlocks through if you'd like. But I'll go ahead and do a walk around of basically the final assembly of what the completed shed should look like. I'm obviously no professional, and I'm not a representative for Anchor or anything, but I really am happy with how the shed turned out. Like I said, you are going to see a lot of reviews of people saying, oh, my shed showed up with some dents in it, or it showed up with scratches in it. Mine did too, but I've been, I'm young, but I understand how this stuff works, and if you don't pay a lot for something like this, just don't expect to get a lot, you know what I mean? So, I mean, this is an 8 by 10 foot shed. You cannot get anywhere close to the pricing on 8 by 10 foot storage. Like I said, I paid about $320 for this, and you cannot get close to that with one of those Rubbermaid sheds, which the Rubbermaid ones are going to hold their color longer. They're not going to rust. You really don't have to worry about maintenance or anything. You don't have to worry about oiling anything on them, really. But they are about double the price. You're probably going to spend $700 or $800 to get the same size, maybe even more for a wood one as well, unless you build it from scratch yourself. But yeah, all the panels went on pretty well. Give you guys a little overview of the roof the best I can. It's not super tall, so it's pretty easy to get up there and show you guys what's going on. And obviously, they do include a ton of extra hardware, so don't be worried if you have a lot extra. Some of this may have been for the floor kit that we didn't end up needing, but I'm just assuming that they kind of just throw in a ton of extra stuff just to, because I mean, I lost a decent amount of stuff myself, so just from dropping it when I was on the roof and whatnot. And everything still seems to be here, so, and I don't know if that I missed any holes. I try to do the best I can to follow the instructions to the T. But here's a little overview of the inside, so you can see we have all the wall braces up and functional. We have the top braces up, obviously the floor braces. I did already add, let's see, I put one concrete anchor over here in this corner. I just use the really just basic, this is like the cheapest kind you can get, that are really meant for, I would almost say walls technically. I mean, they hold up to 235 pounds. That's of like vertical or basically breakaway force. This is being held into the ground, so obviously 235 is probably plenty, but I would recommend getting like a hex head style concrete anchor that's maybe a little bit thicker, maybe even a little bit longer. These are 2 1/4 inches. Concrete's, like I said, a total like 4 inches thick, so you can go with like 3-inch ones. You have tons of different holes that you can use. I mean, all along the base we have holes that we can put concrete screws in. I think they recommend certain holes to be used, but I mean, honestly, they're, like I said, they're all gonna act about the same. I still need to finish drilling that one, and my bit snapped off on me in the middle of doing it. But yeah, you have plenty of spots for anchors. Highly recommend. Actually, I basically am saying you have to anchor this shed down no matter what you build it on. Even if you have like a wooden base, you put it straight in the earth, it really doesn't matter. You need to find some way to hold this down, because these sheds only probably weigh, I would say, total of maybe 180-ish pounds, and they will fly away. I mean, if you get a really bad windstorm, or even, hate to say it, but a tornado or something like that, you will lose your shed. So please anchor them down. I'm going to go ahead and add more once I wrap up this video. But yeah, overall though, really excited. I'm happy with it. You know, I think it turned out really good, and I'm glad it turned out good. This is my first time doing one of these kits specifically. Obviously, besides building a lot of this garage myself and another wooden one at home, I'd never actually built a galvanized steel one. I kind of steer away from stuff like this typically because it is the cheapest on the market, and it is, you know, going to have mixed reviews because it's the cheapest on the market. So there's a reason for it. You know, it's cheaper and it's made with cheaper materials, and they're not expected to last as long. But you know, I'm expecting with the anchors and making sure that I trim this tree down some, that this shed, you know, should last at least 10 years before needing, you know, panels replaced or maybe a whole replacement. So yeah, you know, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to comment and subscribe as well. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.